Slope and rates of change. This is where we're going to take what you've learned so far about rates and what you've learned about graphs and see how the rate relates to the graph. You know the word slope from your weekly vocabulary. It's the measure of the steepness of a line, and I added a little bit for this lesson. It's the rate of vertical change compared to the horizontal change. That's why this lesson is called slope and rates of change, because that's what slope is, a rate of change. The rate is comparing the rise over the run. Think about rising, that is vertical change, and if you run, that is horizontal change. So you will hear us talk about slope as the rise over the run. When you are identifying the slope of a line, you can easily look at it and decide if the slope is negative or if it's positive. If when you read the graph from left to right, the line is going down, then it has a negative slope. If it's going up, if it's rising, then it has a positive slope. Take the time to pause the video and copy these graphs down into your notes. On the graphs, make sure that the one on the left has the coordinate -4, +3, and the coordinate -2, 0. Plot those 2 points, take a straight edge, connect the dots, and make a line. For the graph on the right, in case you can't see, coordinates are +2, 2, and +6, 4. Graph those 2 coordinates, get a straight edge, connect the dots, and extend your line out. So to find the slope of each of these, you're wanting to get the rise over the run, how much it's changing vertically over how much it's changing horizontally. When you're talking about rise, it's going to be positive if it's going up, negative if it's going down. For run, it's going to be positive if it's coming to the right, and negative if it's going towards the left. So between these 2 points, the difference between these is it goes right 2 points, and that makes sense because the difference between -2 and -4 and -2 is +2, and then it's going down 3, so I've written a -3 there. Going from 3 to 0 is -3. You can actually calculate it with the coordinates, but I would advise you just to count them on the graph. So I have -3 on top, because that's the rise, the change in the vertical, over +2 because it went to the right 2. That is reduced, so that would be my answer, -3 over 2. For this graph, the rise is it's going up. It's going up 2 coordinates. It's going from 2 on the y-axis to 4 on the y-axis. And then for the run of it, the horizontal change, it's going from +2 to +6. So that has a run of +4. So it's rise over run. So it's like having 2 over 4, which reduces to 1 over 2. The second skill for this lesson is using slope and a point to graph a line. You're given a slope, you're given a point. So how to do this? First, you're going to graph the given point. Go ahead and draw your graph on your notebook paper. Pause the video to give yourself time to do that. We're going to graph that coordinate -3, 2. So starting at the origin, I'm going left 3 and up 2. So there's my first coordinate. Now I'm going to use the slope of -3 over 4. As in the previous board, since it's negative, I know it's going to be going down. -3 is the run of it, so it's going down 3. 1, 2, 3. So it's going from +2 to -1, and I'm going to the right 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So my new coordinate there is +1, -1. I can repeat that, go down 3, 1, 2, 3, and to the right 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that new coordinate there is -4, +5. If you've done this correctly, your points will fall into a straight line. Here's a straight edge. Once you draw your line, you're going to want to put arrows on the end. Those arrows on the end are signifying that even though my graph is limited to these values, it still continues. There are no restrictions on it. When you're talking about rates of change, you can classify them as either constant or variable. Constant meaning there's no bends, there's no curves, the slope remains the same. So this first graph is a constant rate of change. For these two, these are variable rate of change. That's because there are bends, there are curves in the line. The slope changes within the graph. When you're studying something like a parabola, the slope is changing all throughout the graph. And this is what you start to study in things like calculus. Is here the slope is really steep, and then it's getting more and more flat until it's completely flat at the bottom, and then it starts to become positive and get steeper and steeper and steeper. Now over on this one, this is similar to a graph that we saw in lesson 2 on interpreting graphs. The slope is constant when you're just looking at that portion. It's constant there, it's constant there. But the graph as a whole is a variable rate of change because the slope changes within that graph. Here's some for you to practice with. Pause the video, test it out, and then compare with what I do. Okay, for practice A, I could tell that it was a positive slope because it is rising, it is going up. For the rate of change, it's going up 4 and it's running 4. Positive 4 on both of those. 4 over 4 reduces to positive 1. When you are reducing slopes, it's okay for them to be a whole number, but if that would have been 4 over 3, you would have left it that way. Think about in rates. We didn't change them to mixed numbers, so that's the same way in slope. On practice B, I knew it was negative because it is falling, it is going down. It has a rise of negative 2 because it's going down 2, and it has a run of positive 4 because it's going to the right 4. So positive, oh, I did that backwards, didn't I? Oh me, I have a mess. I need to swap that. Okay, so the rise goes on top, negative 2 over the run. Negative 2 over 4 is negative 1/2. Remind me in class to tell you why I said I have a mess right there. Then on number 3, it says use the given slope and a point to graph the line. So I started with 0, 5 right there. It's a negative slope, so I knew it was going to be going down. And the slope is negative 1/4, so I went down 1 over 4. Down 1 over 4. It's like a stair step. Then I got my straight edge, I connected the dots, and I made sure to include my arrows.